Welcome, Dr. Baruch. Thank you for being with us this week also.
Nice to see you again, Simona, and the opportunity to be with you.
So we had a ceasefire that stopped right now. The conflict is going on. We are approaching this period of time when everybody seeks peace and quiet, but things are escalating, I was saying to our viewers, because just these days we've seen the Ukrainian president trying to get his funds from USA for the next time, and this applies also to Israel. And it seems that these money are right now blocked by an internal political fight they have there in the USA. Well, in a very dark and faraway scenario, we could find ourselves, us Romanians, neighbors to Russia, which I'm not sure everybody is on board with. This also concerns Israel. We have a lot of hostages still in Gaza. We have many bodies of dead hostages that have not been recovered. So we are not going on a peace and quiet territory. It seems things are still escalating. How are things there? How has been your week? How is your family?
Well, we're doing fine. We feel very, very safe. I will say that it's been quiet in our city. We had not received any rocket attacks for around a week. But yesterday we had 10 rockets that were fired into our city. Thankfully, the defense was able to shoot them down, so there was no damage. There was a piece of a rocket that crashed into a grocery store and went through the roof and did some damage, but there was no injuries. So things are good here.
What about the hostages? What do you hear in the news there? Anything new?
Well, approximately 20 hostages have been killed since they were taken into captivity. Now, whether they were killed intentionally or whether they died for some others, some would say that a few of the older ones, because they were not getting medicine, that they suffered because of that. Others, the intelligence says that they were in fact murdered by Hamas. So there is no current negotiations going on. Israel has reached out to Egypt just today. I received a notification that Israel would like Egypt to see what can be done to renew a release of hostages in turn for some type of ceasefire. I will say this, and I think this is very important, and that is there is Israeli intelligence that Hamas is running out of ammunition, that they don't have the number of rockets to fire because they fired so many, and because Israel is finding the locations of where they're being stored and destroying that. So a lot less rockets. And I do believe that within 2 or 3 weeks, we will see that this conflict will move into a different type of war, more pinpoint and more going after the terrorists who are hiding.
Have you heard any concerns in Israel regarding these $110 billion that are trapped right now in that political issue between Republicans and Democrats in the USA?
Yes. The vast majority of that money was going to go to the Ukraine and other issues. Only about, if I'm getting my numbers right, I think 14 billion was for Israel. And I believe that President Biden, who's putting much pressure on Israel, for example, he wants Netanyahu to get rid of his government and bring in a government that will support the creation of a Palestinian state. That's not, in my opinion, going to happen. But it does seem that President Biden has gone around this conflict in order that Israel can get military aid, not necessarily cash, but we don't need the cash. We need the weapons and such. And I believe that there is an agreement or a mechanism for Israel to still get the ammunition that we need.
Another interesting thing that happened was that we saw this Turkish deputy in their parliament giving a very I don't know, important speech for him probably. And at some point he had a heart attack, he fell, he hit his head. He's currently in the hospital in Ankara, we heard, in an intensive care unit. And he was urging Mr. Erdogan to not just make speeches against Israel and pro-Palestinian, but to do something about it. I was thinking about Erdogan's speech about a month ago. He had that flag around his neck, the Palestinian flag. And I believe it was the spark. I believe his speech was the spark to all the manifestations we saw from Muslim people all over the world against Israel. And what he said brought a lot of frustration in many Muslim people, which led to maybe, I don't know, anger, and then we saw even violence. But there was something that he said that maybe was overlooked. He said that he's ready for a war between the crescent and the cross. And the crescent is trying, with this, I believe, to cast a big shadow upon the Star of David. What's your intake on this? I believe it was overlooked too easy, what he said.
Very good point, Simona. Erdogan, at least in the last 5 years, he has given the most anti-Semitic speeches and with great hatred towards Israel of anyone that has any type of significant position.
Yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. He is the only state leader that had the audacity to say like this, to call Netanyahu a war criminal. I have not seen any other leader that did this so straightforward like him.
You're absolutely right. So there's great tension and anger between Erdogan and Israel. He does not like us at all. And this is surprising because the relationship between Turkey and Israel, if you go back 10, 15, 20 years, it was a very good relationship. But Erdogan coming to power has really changed the Israeli and the Turkish relationship. It used to be about 2 million Israelis would visit Turkey a year. Now, virtually none of that is going on. So to go back to your point, there was that member, I believe, of their Congress or their parliament. And what he said was, Israel will receive the wrath. And of course, he's Muslim. He said, Allah, the wrath of Allah. And right after saying that, as you pointed out, I believe that he had a heart attack and collapse. And anyway, people can make the conclusion that they won on that, but you know, God is sovereign. So
the war of the crescent and the cross, I believe it's more than just a political statement. I believe it's more substance to it. Is it a religious war they're looking for?
It's definitely a religious war. In fact, it's a religious war that they believe must happen between Islam and, of course, the cross Christianity. And it's not something new. A few months ago, we were in Kosovo, and we went to a location where, going back, I believe, in the 13th century, there was a major war there, a conflict, a battle. And to this day, you'll see individuals go to there. Right now, although it's in Kosovo, it has the status of Serbian land, and Serbian Christians, Orthodox Christians, go there because they are also thinking about the fact, and if you read what's said there in Serbian, that there has to be this war, this conflict. So anyway, I don't see things getting better. I don't see a utopia coming into this world. I think we're going to see more conflicts, more wars, more instability, and exactly what Yeshua taught.
We have seen some scenarios that some people thought about regarding the interest that some states, even Turkey, has about very important commercial routes. And the conflict in Israel might be related, the conflict in Yemen might be related. They were saying, do you believe we will see something like that going on? I don't know, major states, like a few states using these conflicts actually to gain some power, some control over very important commercial routes?
Well, we see that happening already as an excuse in order to attack ships and such. No, the real conflict is based upon one thing, and I really don't think there's a debate about this, and that is the existence of the modern state of Israel. The fact that there is an Israel is very problematic, and Islam teaches the concept of redemption. And they want to redeem that land, simply meaning they want to take control of it and move Jewish people off that land. And that is the nature of the conflict. And that's why the call from the river to the sea is all about eliminating Israel. And so that's what this conflict is about. And I do believe that governments, nations will try to exploit this. We'll see more hatred for Israel as a way to justify Islamic expansion and control in different areas.
Well, I do wish all the declarations they make against Israel and pro-Palestine are made from their hearts filled with love for the Palestinian people and not for political interests. This brings me to Isaiah 17. I was asking you about this. These are times when people are looking for the sensational and they are trying to find bits and pieces that could help them, I don't know, establish a point in the Bible where they could see the God working right now, prophecies being fulfilled right now. This would help them somehow in their faith, maybe. I don't know what they're thinking. I was thinking about Isaiah 17. I have seen people preaching about the fact that we might see Israel having a hard time, but then God in one night will help them rise and they will destroy Damascus, for example. I wrote here, for example, verse 12, are the voices of people like the loud sounding of the seas and the thundering of great nations rushing on like the bursting out of waters, which we see now, all the fuss is going on. But then there's that night, in the evening there is fear, and in the morning they are gone. This already happened.
Well, Isaiah 17 primarily is not about Israel defeating Damascus. By the way, Israel is attacking Damascus quite frequently, almost every night. So that is happening. But this prophecy is more in regard to Assyria, that empire that is going to take over the biblical nation called Aram, what we would call Syria today. And of course, the capital of Aram, that biblical name, is Damascus. So it's not about Israel taking over. In fact, that prophecy in Isaiah chapter 17 speaks about Israel going through a very difficult time as well.
Before that night, right.
Yes, you're exactly right. What is important about this prophecy, now I'll give an example. If someone turns to Matthew 24, it begins with Yeshua, Jesus of Nazareth, speaking about the destruction of the temple. What destruction he's talking about? The one that took place in 70 AD, almost 2,000 years ago. He was right. Everything that he said was correct. It happened exactly what he said. That is to confirm and teach the reader what he says about the last days will also be correct, and we should receive it from him as fact. In the same way, we look at Isaiah chapter 17, and those events have happened. I think most scholars would see that it's not related to the end times, but there is an end times connection. We should look at Isaiah 17 and say, God was right. God did bring through Assyria, this large empire, probably the largest empire ever in human history, did bring about the destruction of Damascus. And because that was fulfilled, God's word is true. And then we can go to, for example, Isaiah chapter 19, where it is some connection to the last days and say, well, if God was faithful to do what he did in Isaiah 17, we should also believe that God is faithful and able to carry out what he says he's going to do in Isaiah chapter 19. I think this views of Isaiah 17 and trying to put it into today is a misappropriation of that chapter.
So we will not necessarily see Israel at a point of destruction in the time to come, because, well, if it happened, it doesn't apply. And then used in a mighty way in one night by God to destroy Damascus.
No, God's going to come through Messiah. He's going to defeat the enemies of Israel, including Damascus. There will be judgment in that place in the future. That's true. But my issue is, I don't believe that Isaiah 17 speaks about the future. It's about the past, which confirms what God will do against the enemies of Israel and bringing about, as we know, in a very short time, the establishment. You say Israel, that's fine, but it's speaking about a kingdom, and I would say the millennial kingdom that Messiah is going to rule over, and that kingdom is going to have representations from every nation, every tribe, every people, and that's good, every language. So I'm all for seeing God's salvation and his promises being extended to more and more people, more and more nations, but of course we know that's only through faith, and this is true for Jewish people, only through faith in the Messiah Jesus.
Remaining in this register of sensational, I saw something else that many people went on board with. There's a person in the United States, I believe, or Canada, I'm not sure. His name is Jonathan Cahn. He actually wrote a book right now, but he's been known for some time. And he says he could predict the attack on 7th of October. He predicted it, and this is the sensational part of it, because the whole world was taken by surprise, even Mossad. And he said he predicted the attack on 7 October, and he actually wrote this book, The Oracle, The Jubilee Mysteries Revealed. I would really like for you to give us an intake on his opinions.
Well, he's written many books, and I think that he does, and I apologize for being so just blunt and frank about this, but I think he is a horrible Bible teacher. I think he's much more interested in selling books than edifying other believers. He is very well known for taking biblical things and distorting them in order to make his point. He certainly did not say anything in regard to what happened on October 7th. Now, let's put it in the right perspective. There were many peoples that said, if Israel doesn't deal with Hamas and destroy Hamas, there's going to be some catastrophes that come out of that. Israeli intelligence said that. President Netanyahu said that, or Prime Minister Netanyahu. Many people said that. But that doesn't mean when, God's prophecy is very pinpoint. God's exact. Jonathan Cahn did not say on October 7th, on this special holiday known in the Bible as the 8-day assembly, what's called Shemini Atzeret in Hebrew, that this is going to happen. So I believe that he is very false in so many of the things that he says, and it's all, I think, use that word, an attempt to sensationalize the scriptures in a way that causes people to go, wow, this is amazing. I want to hear more, rather than being true to the biblical text. So I have great problems with him, and I do not believe that he's a man of integrity or truth or someone that people should be listening to.
So obviously you do not share his views.
I don't.
Many other people do, because he is saying that he has revelations from God and then seeks those revelations in the Bible and finds them there. And so his opinions are valid.
Well, I also think it's very important to see who he associates with. and he associates with many problematic Christians and teachers and such. Let me give you an example. Going back, probably to around 7, 8 years ago, so much of the church was talking about the 4 blood moons. Now, right there, people should have a little bit of maturity. The Bible doesn't ever say anything about 4 blood moons. They speak about 1 blood moon that announces the imminency, the soon coming of the wrath of God. Now, what did they do? They took an old English term that spoke about a eclipse with the sun and the moon, and that's called in English, in Old English, a blood moon. And there were these eclipses that took place, and they sold books, they had DVDs, they made a lot of money, and they all said this was a sign that God was going to do something in that year or the next year, because it was a 2-year period. And you know what? Nothing of significance happened. And then they talked about what in Hebrews called the Shemitah, which is every 7 years that we find that we don't sow the land in Israel. Today, farmers in Israel follow that. Not all, but most do. And this only applies to Israel. And the message is, if we trust God, God will show himself faithful and he will bless us. And that 6th year, not the 5th, 4th, 3rd, but the 6th year will provide enough for 2 years. And in the year of Jubilee, he'll provide enough for 3 years. This is God's faithfulness. It's never spoken of as judgment. And he says how every 7 years, there's terrible things that happen. And what does he do? He searches Googles for those years to find bad things that happen, and he puts them down. That's not biblical study. So I think he's very dangerous, and I would certainly not recommend him.
Well, it did seem sensational to me indeed. So I was curious, what do you think about it? Of course, everybody is free to study everything they have in front of them and to make their own decisions. I was just, for the last 2 or 3 minutes that we still have, I was thinking about Romans 11, about the verses that are saying that, you know, the Jewish people are now in a period of time when God calls them fallen. It says here, but if it is of grace, then it is no longer of works, or grace would not be grace. What then? That which Israel was searching for he did not get, but those of the selection got it, and the rest were made hard. As it was said in the holy writings, God gave them a spirit of sleep, eyes which might not see, and ears which have not hearing to this day. And David says, let their table be made a net for taking them, and a stone in their way, and a punishment. Now, are they now, the Jewish people, in the period of time they are falling, like it says in verse 11, and then we should just let them be fallen until they will be made full? This is another thing that I have been seeing going around on the internet, and people being confused about their attitudes against or related to Jewish people in these times.
Again, a very significant question that has significant implications to it. Let's be very accurate. That hardening, and Romans 11 says that hardening that's come from rejecting the gospel, it says, has happened in part, meaning not every Jewish person, but we do see perhaps a significant majority rejecting. But I can tell you, living in Israel, being in Israel right now, that Jewish people are coming to faith, even in the midst of this war. Perhaps in light of this war, people are searching. So I think it's very wrong. I have heard the same things you have. I think it's very wrong to simply say, well, we just forget about them because they are fallen people. Well, a portion have stumbled and fallen, but Paul also anticipates a great day of reconciliation, and that reconciliation is going to bring about the kingdom of God. So The scripture here is saying that there's going to be a time when Israel's going to be blighted for their unbelief, but we shouldn't expect that to happen forever. There's going to be a reconciliation, but even today, God is working, bringing Jewish people, and I believe the church, based upon another chapter in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, we should have an emphasis to share the gospel with Jewish people. So we don't want to take a vacation from evangelizing Jewish people. We want to be working at it all the time, and God will bless that.
Well, I do agree with you on that, and I do hope that people will open their eyes and see the Jewish people loved by God, all of them, just like we all are. And of course, they are in God's plan all the time. God used Jewish people so much in history and will be using them from now on also. I really want to thank you so much for everything you've shared today. And I do wish God keeps you and your family safe. And if you need anything, all the brothers and sisters here at Credo TV are here for you.
Thank you very much. We love Credo, and they're a blessing to us.
Thank you so much.